The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and rain-soaked pavement as I walked home from my basketball practice. Sweat clung to the back of my neck and my legs ached from sprint drills. My hoodie was damp, sticking to my back. I was tired, but the shortcut through Willow Park would get me home faster. As I cut through the narrow path, I heard it, the familiar jingle, faint but recognizable, an ice cream truck. The melody floated through the humid evening air, but something was off. The music sounded sluggish, distorted, almost broken. I wiped the sweat from my brow and glanced toward the road. The pale blue truck rolled into view, its headlights cutting through the dusk. The once cheerful jingle dragged unnaturally, warping into an eerie off-key tune. I slowed my pace. Weird, I mumbled, glancing at the empty park. No one was around, just me and the truck. It pulled over, and the driver leaned out of the window. He was thin, with unkempt hair and sunken eyes. His face was gaunt, and his smile, too wide, too toothy. "You look like you could use a cold one, bud," he said, his voice gravelly and cracked. I stopped. There was something off about his smile. It looked as if it was stretching and shrinking. I felt nauseous. No thanks," I said, while fighting off a smile. But then I turned to begin walking away, my heart beginning to beat faster and faster. "Come on, kid, it's on the house. I disagree." I gulped. I stole a glance back over my shoulder, and sure enough, he was still there, staring at me and not blinking. I started walking faster. Just then, the truck stepped it up again, and I heard the tires screech on the asphalt. I turned around again, and sure enough, the truck was creeping towards me. Nope. I began jogging, my feet clapping against the pavement and my breathing getting heavier. The jingle played again, slower this time, a complacent, provoking jingle. I turned on Maplewood Street, a shortcut to my house, but before I reached the intersections, the truck was already parked there, conveniently blocking me from escaping. I froze. The driver leaned halfway out of the window, his face drenched in shadows, eyes glinting in the dim light. "I said, it's on the house." His voice was lower now, guttural and threatening. My throat tightened. I turned and ran like hell. My legs burned as I sprinted, but I didn't dare slow down. I cut through the park again, hopping over a bench and pushing through overgrown bushes. The truck barreled onto the sidewalk, tires screaming, nearly clipping me. I stumbled onto Willow Lane, a deserted residential block. The street was eerily empty. No cars, no porch lights, no people. My chest heaved as I pounded on the nearest door, fists slamming against the wood. "Help me, please!" Nothing. I ran to the next house. No answer. I turned around and the ice cream truck crept closer, headlights illuminating the entire street. The driver stepped out. His boots splashed into a shallow puddle and he stared at me with that same toothy grin, too wide, too forced. "Nobody's home, huh?" he cooed, tilting his head. "That's perfect." I stumbled backward, my hands trembling, but the man advanced slowly, like he was enjoying it. My back hit a chain-link fence at the end of the street. I glanced left and right. No way out. My heart pounded in my ears. The man whistled sharply, making me flinch. "You sure can run, kid, but you can't run forever." He grinned broadly, his lips stretching back in a nasty way. It was then that I saw them, his teeth, decayed, broken, black at the gums. I gagged, and then he grasped his jaw and ripped out a tooth. Pop! Blood poured from his gums and dribbled down his chin. I stood frozen, paralyzed, watching as he ripped out another and then another. He threw the jagged, rotten teeth on the road as if they were candy. Pop, pop, pop. His fingers slick with blood, and he smiled even wider, revealing gaping, bloody holes. He reached out, his bloodied hand, and wiggled one of the teeth between his fingers. "You like sweets, huh? Want one of mine?" I was backing up, my stomach churning like I would throw up, but he was quick. instantly taking steps to close the distance, running his sticky, blood-slick fingers on my hair.
Such pretty hair. Soft.
I snapped. I swatted his hand away, gasping in disgust. I ran down the street, sprinting as quick as my legs could move. My lungs burned, and I did not stop. The man didn't walk after me. No, he jumped in his truck. The engine roared and the tires squealed while bright headlights illuminated the alley as I made my way through a narrow opening into the next yard. My shadow was stretched as long as my movement was across a crude, unfinished brick wall. The truck tires squealed as it sped after me. I ran and dove quickly through a closed chain-link fence into a dirt-covered yard. The jagged metal sliced my arm, and I felt warm blood soaking my sleeve while I suppressed a scream. I hit the ground hard in a dusty, overgrown, unruly backyard. The weeds brushed against my trembling legs while I crouched as low as I could to conceal my body. Bleeding arm clutched tightly against my side, trying to muffle shaky breaths. The ice cream truck skidded to a stop, a breath behind me, and the warped skeleton jingle echoed through the empty blocks, rhythmic in its broken, offbeat, out-of-tune formation, a dying music box. I squeezed my eyes shut and felt my fingers string against the raw, flesh separation of flesh underneath in the palm of my arm. The headlights remained on, washing the narrow alley and wall, illuminating my faint shadow against the rusted dumpster. For a moment, I swore I saw the driver's silhouette, unmoving, watching me through the blinding light. But then, the truck slowly backed away. Its tires crunched over loose gravel, the jingle distorting further, fading into the distance. I exhaled sharply, my limbs trembling, unsure whether I had truly escaped or if he was just simply toying with me. But then, I got sure that he's gone, and I'm not sure if it's forever. The streets were empty, carrying the quiet that made you feel like you were the last person on Earth. I was walking home from the library, my backpack heavy with textbooks, when I heard it, the faint, tinny sound of an ice cream truck jingle. It was late, way too late for ice cream, but the sound was weirdly comforting. I followed the music because my curiosity got the better of me. The truck was parked near the edge of the neighborhood, with its colorful lights flickering in the dark. The jingle played on repeat, which made it cheerful and eerie at the same time.
Hello?
I called out as I stepped closer. The truck looked empty, but the lights were on and the music was blaring. I figured maybe the driver was inside, so I knocked on the window. That was when he appeared. A man in a mask, one of those creepy, featureless ones, popped up from the back of the truck. Before I could scream, he grabbed me with a grip like iron. I kicked and thrashed as hard as I could, but he was too strong. He dragged me inside and slammed the door shut behind us. Everything went black. I woke up shivering, with my teeth clattering so hard I thought they might crack. The air was freezing, and I realized I was in the truck's freezer compartment. My hands were tied with a rough rope, and my breath came out in white puffs. The truck was moving, with the jingle still playing. I could hear the driver whistling along, his voice muffled but cheerful. "Hope you like Rocky Road," he said through a small vent. "You're in for a rough ride." My heart raced as I struggled against the ropes. That's when I saw it, a jagged edge on a metal tray just within reach. I grabbed it and started sawing at the rope, with my fingers numb from the cold. The truck came to a stop, and I froze. I could hear the driver moving around outside. This was my chance to escape. I slipped out of the freezer, hiding among the tubs of melting ice cream. The truck was a mess, with tools and junk scattered everywhere. I held my breath as I listened for any signs of him. The door creaked open, and I bolted. I burst out of the truck with the cold night air hitting me like a slap. Behind me, the masked man roared in rage, clutching his hand where I had stabbed him with the jagged tray. The truck's headlights lit up the forest, casting long, eerie shadows between the trees. The jingle played on, with its cheerful tune now twisted into something horrifying. I sprinted into the woods, my lungs burning. Twigs snapped under my feet and my thin clothes clung to my damp skin. I could hear him behind me, with his flashlight seeping through the trees. "Come on, sweetheart," he called, with his voice taunting. "You're making this harder on yourself." I ducked behind a fallen log, pressing a hand over my mouth to silence my panicked breaths. The light passed inches above my head, illuminating the mist swirling around me. I spotted a dirt road up ahead. If I could reach it, maybe I could flag down a car. I made a run for it, weaving through the trees with my heart pounding. My foot caught on something with a big thump, and I crashed to the ground. It was a tripwire. He had set up a trap. I groaned in pain, scrambling backward as he emerged from the shadows, with his hulking form silhouetted by the flashlight. "That wasn't very nice, stabbing me like that," he muttered, shaking his injured hand. He reached into his apron and pulled out a rusty ice cream scoop, sharpened into a jagged blade. "It's time for your special treat." My eyes darted around desperately, and then I saw it. It was a rusty tire iron, half buried in the dirt a few feet away. I lunged for it, just as he grabbed my ankle, yanking me back. I twisted onto my back and kicked, sending a spray of dirt into his face. I grabbed the tire iron and swung wildly, connecting with his knee. He howled in pain, collapsing onto all fours, and I didn't stop. I raised the tire iron again and brought it down on his shoulders, his back, and his head. Over and over again. The masked man lay still, with the mud beneath him darkening with blood. I staggered to my feet, panting and trembling. I stumbled onto the road, barely able to stay upright. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance. A car. It felt like salvation. I waved frantically, with tears in my eyes. The car slowed down, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The car door opened, and a woman with warm brown eyes helped me into the vehicle. My whole body was shaking, my clothes mostly ripped and wet. She asked me if I was okay. I replied,
I'm good. Just take me home.
And got in, my grip tightening around the seatbelt. When I got to my house, I stumbled out of the car and banged on the door as hard as I could. My parents' face turned white when they saw me, covered with blood, shivering, and barely able to keep my balance. My mom wrapped me in her arms, weeping out loud, and my dad called 911. The police arrived in a minute. I told them everything: the ice cream truck, the freezer, the woods. The police searched the area but found nothing. No truck, no man. Now, every single time I hear an ice cream jingle, my stomach knots. The police couldn't find him, but I know he's still out there, watching, waiting for when he could play again. I never thought my life would come to this, driving a beat-up ice cream truck through the outskirts of town, trying to make ends meet. But here I was, Roger, a guy in his late 30s with more bills than dreams, handing out cones to sick kids at a care home. The sun was setting as I pulled up to the worn-out building, with its paint peeling and windows fogged. The kids rushed out, their faces lighting up despite their illnesses. Caregivers followed, smiling as I handed out ice creams. It felt good, like maybe I was doing something meaningful for once. But then I heard it. 3 caregivers frantically calling out a name. Daisy! Daisy, where are you? One of them turned to me, breathless.
You need to leave, now. Daisy's escaped, and we need to lock the gates.
I didn't ask questions. I just got into my truck and drove off, with that kid's laughter fading behind me. The highway was quiet, carrying the kind of silence that makes you feel like you are the only person left in the world. The radio crackled softly, playing some old song I didn't recognize. I was lost in thought, wondering if I will ever catch a break, when I felt it. A cold, sharp blade pressed against my throat.
Drive, or I will slit your throat.
A voice hissed. I froze, with my eyes darting to the rearview mirror. There she was, Daisy. Her wild eyes stared back at me, filled with fury and madness. Her hair was tangled, and her face was pale and streaked with dirt. She wore a torn care home gown stained with dried blood. I swallowed hard, with my hands trembling on the wheel. Okay, just don't hurt me. She did not say another word. She just kept the ice pick pressed to my throat as I drove.
Stop here.
She ordered, pointing to a deserted stretch of road near an abandoned cemetery. I pulled over and she leapt out of the truck, sprinting into the foggy graveyard. My heart raced as I grabbed my phone and called the caregivers. "She's at the old cemetery," I said, with my voice shaking. "I'm gonna go after her."
No, do not. It is too dangerous.
One of them shouted, but I could not just let her go. If she made it back to the road, someone else could get hurt. I grabbed a tire iron from the truck and followed her into the cemetery. The place was a nightmare, with overgrown weeds, cracked gravestones, and a heavy mist that made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. My boots crunched over the dead leaves, and my breath came in shallow gasps. In the distance, I saw her, Daisy's pale figure weaving between the gravestones. "You're making it worse for yourself, Daisy!" I called out, hoping to reason with her. Her eerie giggle echoed back.
I'm not the one you should be scared of.
Suddenly, a gravestone toppled behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. The faint crunch of footsteps made me whirl again. I gripped the tire iron tighter, with my knuckles white. Out of nowhere, Daisy lunged at me from behind a gravestone, slashing my forearm with the ice pick. I stumbled, clutching my bleeding arm while she sprinted deeper into the cemetery, disappearing behind a crypt. I followed her footsteps in the damp grass, with my heart pounding. The mist thickened, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. Every shadow seemed to move, and every sound made me jump. I spotted her near an old mausoleum, with her small figure trembling. Thinking she was too weak to run, I approached cautiously, but she vanished. Before I could react, Daisy burst from the shadows, tackling me to the ground. We struggled violently, tumbling against broken headstones. She scratched and clawed at my face, screaming incoherently. I caught her wrist just as she plunged the ice pick toward my throat. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. The caregivers and authorities were coming. Using my last ounce of strength, I slammed Daisy's hand into a sharp fragment of a broken gravestone, disarming her. She wailed like a wounded animal, thrashing against me, but I pinned her down until the caregivers arrived. They injected her with a sedative and she went limp. Panting and covered in blood and dirt, I collapsed beside a gravestone. Daisy, heavily drugged, locked eyes with me as they strapped her into a stretcher. Her lips curled into a sinister smile. I limped back to my truck, exhausted. That was when I saw it. An ID badge on the passenger seat. It was a care home badge with Daisy's picture, but the name read Carly Rivers. My stomach dropped. One of the caregivers noticed the badge and turned pale.
That is not Daisy.
She whispered.
Daisy's still missing.
I stared at the cemetery, with realization dawning. I had just spent the last hour chasing the wrong girl. From the darkness, Daisy's faint giggle echoed, unseen and still on the loose.